Hello, everyone. I just thought that I would jump online today because it's the 22nd of November and I want to share a journey that changed my life and has since also had a ripple effect for other people, which is absolutely fabulous. And it's what I'm all about. So I want to share The Visitor. So this is the first book that I ever wrote back in, I was writing it 12 years ago this very month. It's called The Visitor, A Magical Understanding of Uncertainty. And I speak about this in my TED talk, and I've spoken about it many times. So I apologize if you've heard it a million times, but it's an important part of the journey. So I really wanted to share with you about it. So hi to anyone who's watching, and please comment and I will answer any questions you have. But I'm here talking about the 10th anniversary edition of my book, The Visitor, the book that started it all. So some of you may not know is that I started out as a fictional author. This time, 12 years ago, I was doing NaNoWriMo, which is Novel Writing Month. And I was writing, I decided to write this novel about grief and loss, and there was a waiting zone and all different things. I had never written a novel before. I had written a few blog posts about kind of life and stuff for a website called Building Beautiful Bonds. But I also I decided that it was a really big call, one that I couldn't ignore, and that was to write The Visitor. And The Visitor is where there's this guy who leaves Earth before his time, so goes to the waiting zone and then becomes a messenger to Earth. And he visits 5 women who each go through, endure their own suffering. They go on a journey. He goes on it with them, and then he goes on a journey himself. So, but it's helped a lot of people through grief and stuff. But this book was one of the most therapeutic things I ever did in my life. It helped me to really just let go of things that were holding me back and that were niggling at me and that were painful and that I needed to heal from. So I really realized the power of writing as a vehicle for healing. And as I had worked in mental health for 4 years, I understood how powerful and how important it is in the lives of everybody. And hi, Stacey. Thanks for watching. So The Visitor, I wrote in 30 days. I do not know where it came from. It was totally irrational for me to even choose to write a novel because I had just had my fourth child. She was 4 weeks old. So whilst breastfeeding her, in one arm, I was typing with missing keys on my keyboard this novel. So I wrote 1,667 words a day for 30 days, and I had a 50,000 word novel. So there we go, a 50,000 word novel. What do you do with that? What do you do with it? Hey, Sonia. So yeah, I decided I didn't know anything about writing or publishing or anything. I didn't even know I had only written a first draft and that it needed to be developed. I thought I had written a masterpiece. I shared it with my sister. I shared it with a friend of mine who had actually endured a miscarriage, and there's one of the characters in it endures one, and she said that this book was the answer her heart longed for. And when I heard that, I knew that I had, that's why I was called to write it, to share the answer that I got, that my heart needed to hear. And she got the same out of the book. So I knew I had to get it out there. So I went on the journey to find a publisher. One found me. And so I went on the journey there. I did not understand the process of publishing or what was involved, and even the editing steps and proofreading and all of those things I didn't understand, but I was open to learning. And at the beginning of this book, this is actually the first ever version. This was the one published back in 2012. And it says, sometimes things happen to test us. It's only if we pass the test do we receive the true gift. And so, as you can see, quite spiritual, all that kind of stuff. So, but I was never educated on how to be an author or even where to go from here. So, when I got this book in my hands, I was like, was this worth it? Wow, it was such a big, epic journey. But the quote at the beginning of the book says, "From every negative situation is the potential for a positive outcome." So I started to realize that it was just my perspective of the process that actually was making me feel bad about it. That if I shifted and shifted my expectations were different than what I had received. So I shifted my perspective, and I realized that when I had learned so much about publishing process during the journey, and that when someone asked me, "Did you, or would you be able to help me publish my book?" I realized, you know what, I probably could. So I done a little bit more research, and I discovered that the print and distribution company that this publisher used had opened an office that very month in Australia. And so I made a sacred promise to myself that should I apply to become a publisher and get accepted, that I would, answer the call to help authors have a positive, educate authors and have a positive publishing journey. Feel supported, feel as if someone's sharing knowledge with you, and there's growth. Because I know from my first novel, it was a self development journey. I grew and evolved as a person, as an author, as everything. So that's going to come with humps and bumps. It's to be expected when you're in an evolutionary process. So, but I wasn't prepared for that, and I didn't understand that may hinder things and my emotions, and my focus was obviously being a mom at that time. So, and still is, 10 years later. But the reason why I want to celebrate The Visitor and did bring out this 10th anniversary edition is because it's important to acknowledge that, like this, I believe this book is before its time. The world would probably be ready for it now. It gets a bit complex. Thanks, Annie. Thanks for the congrats. But it's just to show as well that books are forever. They're not just for that moment when they're released. That's the birth of the book. We then got a release, to raise this baby and bring it out and to help it find its readers and embrace that. And so that's why it's really important for that to happen. So also another message I wanted to share, and I've written it in the beginning of the book, is that this book was such a big catalyst in my life. So it's if it was not for me choosing to be courageous and write this book and to share this book with the world, I would never have found my calling to have stories get told. I would never have had the successes I've had in the entrepreneurial world. I would never have helped so many authors get published, so many stories get out there into the world, more connections to have. That ripple effect is beautiful. And I really wanted to celebrate it. Thanks, Joanne. Thank you. I really wanted to celebrate it by releasing this book, because this book is so much more than a story. This book represents what can happen in 10 years. 10 years ago, I was oblivious to the potential. I set an intention, and it grew and it grew. And so when you open up your arms to the world, it took courage for me it took time, first of all, for me to sit and write the book. I didn't overthink it. I just let it flow. I let the story just come out. But I answered all of the right calls, and I turned down the right ones too. So this is important to acknowledge, for every author to acknowledge, whether you're on writing your first book, whether you're publishing it, whether you are 10 books in, to remember and really connect with the essence of why you do what you do. And mine is absolutely 100% to help stories get told, because when stories connect, they can heal, they can educate, they can inspire, they have a ripple effect in our world. And that is why it's important to honor that journey. So The Visitor for me is such an important integral catalyst in my author journey, but in my business journey as well. So really, if you're in the business world, or if you are aspiring to write a book, I say just go with it, to honor it, and to see where it brings you, but be open. Don't try to micromanage every single aspect of it. Let the journey be organic. Allow it to set the intentions and have the courage to say hell yes to the hell yeses and a hell no to the no's, because it's just as important to say no to the things that your heart's not in as it is to say yes to the things that your heart is in. So because then we're giving the best of ourselves to others. And one of the things that I realized through the publishing and the writing and publishing of this book is that everything's a journey. This book was a journey, the publishing was a journey, my business has been a journey ever since. But if you don't show up and have courage to step into the unknown, and yes, it is like jumping off the cliff and building the wings on the way down. But why not? It's an adventure, it's exhilarating. But when you're smart and strategic, and when you do it with loving intention and through service, that is when you will reap the rewards. Yeah, you're doing a hell yes. Absolutely. So the visitor for me is really important and always will be. It ended up being the first of a trilogy. So I'm just going to swap out. So this is the one that's circulating on its own right now, the visitor. Karen Weaver, I write as my maiden name because that's where I'm really connected to. We also got a really good review. You know, she said the plot twists and the enticement of what happens in the next page may unfold will leave the reader with chores still to be done and dinner uncooked. I apologize in advance. And the reason why that is because I allowed my characters to go on their own journey. I allowed my characters to honor their story, what I intended the story to be. The essence was there, but the journey of it and the plot line twisted. I didn't know what was going to happen on the next page. So interestingly, book 1 turned out to book 2, which is The Wish Giver. So it's a bit thicker. It took me a bit longer. I did not write this in 30 days. This book actually, I had started writing book 3, which is The Memory Taker. Okay. And it wasn't coming. I suppose somebody would have called it writer's block. And so it was the year after I published The Visitor, you know, the momentum was high and I really wanted to write the book, but it wouldn't come. And then I realized that it was because this book needed to come in between. So this is The Wish Giver, and people love this book. They love this so much. Because I think it's lighter. The Visitor is you know, interesting and fascinating, but this one's lighter, and it's when the true magic is when it all comes together. So it's kind of like, be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. What are you going to have to sacrifice in the process, you know? So just being mindful of that and really just going on a journey with these guys. And the Wish Giver is a female. There we go. So so that's why there's a girl in the cover. And then we have The Memory Taker, and it goes deep. So a soul journey runs deep. So, and that's the trilogy. We have 2 more coming, when I have time to just sit and write. But those are my fictional novels, and I went on to write some fictional novelettes and things like that, a bit of romance, which was fun to do in little novelettes. But ultimately, I have ended up called into sharing nonfiction now with the world. And I write that through my Alchemy of Life Magic series, and I do Biz Magic and all of those things. Because when you honor the journey, people say, how do you do what you do, Karen? You've got 6 kids, you've got businesses. And yes, there's times where sometimes things don't flow. There's times where things are a bit bumpy, but ultimately it all happens and works out at exactly the right time, even the challenges. So that is why we show up, and every day I persevere and keep persistent with getting stories out into the world, because of the ripple effect that it has for humanity. It's important for us to share our stories with the world. When we share our stories with the world heals a little bit. It gets educated a little bit more, connects a bit more. So that's why it's so important for me to do that. Oh, thank you, Annie. Honoring the journey. Yes, it's so important. It's so important, Annie Gibbons. And you know, you show up for stories as well and have people connect through it. So I just want to thank you so much for watching this video and helping me celebrate the 10th anniversary. Where have I put it? Oh, it's right in front of me. of the visitor. I'm happy dancing because, you know, it is a milestone. 10th anniversary of my first. This was my first book into the publishing arena, and was I tested it on myself. I was my own guinea pig, bringing the visitor out into the world, and look at what it's made happen. It has helped me to grow into the person that I am today, that can help and support others on their journey, because it's important. And so please, if you have the call to write your story, do not ignore it. It will wake you up in the middle of the night. It will disgruntle you inside. You'll feel unsettled. Start letting it out. Start writing it. Whether it's to be published or not, it doesn't matter. Whether it's a fictional novel, I found it easier for me to write because my story's in here. And I found it because I was, you know, writing about people that in my life and stuff like that. So I felt it more freedom in writing fiction than I did in writing nonfiction at the time. And even though I write freely with nonfiction these days and share all sorts of things, you know, there's nothing's hidden. But this was just a safe vehicle for me to be able to share my story and have impact and reach the hearts and minds of those who needed to read it. So it was so important to me to do this. And there's been so many people who have joined me on this journey, especially for the visitor, because when you write your first novel, you know, it's like, will anybody read this? And I wanted to give a shout out to my sister Emma, who I sent my first draft to. She thought it was the best piece of work. I was just like, did you really write this? And I was like, yeah, I did. Oh, Kez, there's Kez. Hi, Kez. Kez has reviewed it on her YouTube, and Kez always really rates this book. So thank you for that, Kez, and for the support. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Stacey. Yes, you are on this journey. I'm watching you. I can't wait to see you where you are whenever you're releasing the 10th anniversary edition of the Intuitive Detective. It's amazing. So yes, Joanne, I'll give you a signed copy. We've got some here. All right. Thank you so much, guys. And yes, Emma was to join me, but she's probably still sleeping in the UK. So we may jump on again, and she can talk about what it was like, because we've got this whole month happening of the visitor and celebrating. And if you are an author, or if you're a publisher like the amazing Annie Gibbons, and when you are sharing stories with the world, you know, just to celebrate the story. Everyone has meaning, and everyone, whenever it connects, will ignite something within somebody that will make the world a better place. So thank you guys for watching. If you want to grab a copy, go to mmhpress.com. That's the easiest way. I will be sending out signed copies, or just go online. You'll find it anywhere. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.